All right, welcome everyone. I am really excited about this. This is a fireside chat about PMO, and what PMO means could be different depending on your role. And we're going to start off demystifying some things because a lot of our roles start with the letter P, and there are many of them. And like, which one is it? And I don't mean to joke or take it too lightly, but there's program management and project management and product operations, and there's probably some I'm missing that you will all help me bring up. So we're going to start off with some of the roles because each of our guests has a different title and a slightly different role, but there's lots of overlaps too. So we will discuss that. Then we're going to go on to the easy part of our jobs, and that's defining all the goals in the company and aligning them all and getting people to buy into them, the easy part. And then we'll go on to talk about how we prioritize our work based on looking at the entire portfolio of all of the things we could be working on and delivering to customers, right? And then finally, everyone's favorite topic, dependencies and resource management and how we make those decisions. Zemira at the beginning, but when our pre-chat was saying that's what she spends most of her time on. And so we're going to talk a lot about that too. So this is the topic. So we're going to take off the slides now and start. Zemira, I want to start with you because you have a project, I should say, a program management title. And so the first question is sort of, okay, there's project management, there's program management, and there's product operations, and they sort of overlap. So how do you see these three roles from your perspective as a program manager?
Yeah, in fact, I do all three of them, and they're different. So I do have at Bushel, we have multiple products. The brand new product line that's being established is FinTech, under which there's two products. I'm overseeing both of them in a whole FinTech portfolio. And within it, I actually manage as a project manager one of the product builds. I oversee day-to-day everything the team does, the details of it, the planning, the are we on track, all of the project management things. At the same rate, getting this product out the door is a program. There's many business components around it, including marketing, including operations. There's a debit card involved. That program has to be set up. There's vendors engaged in that. There's a program of it. That's one product. There's another product under FinTech umbrella that's being created. I don't project manage that. There's another project manager, but I oversee both of them. And together, they kind of are, well, we call it program, but in reality, it's portfolio. It's that level oversight of all of it. So I step through all of it and I manage the resources on every level. So to me, that's the little distinction. And it's interesting when I speak to people, they sometimes confuse even when they're speaking to me, like, am I speaking to you as a project manager or you're at the director level now? And sometimes I have to clarify. Sometimes we just go through it and solve the problem. So that's how resourcing, when we're talking about resourcing, that's how resourcing comes in. I oversee all of resourcing for all of FinTech, but then specifically for my project that I'm working on very specifically, I manage it day to day.
So I have a quick follow-up for you. So when you say, as your title of program management, and then for one project, you say, for one product, you say, I act as a project manager. For another, I act as a program manager. So do you have to switch your mindset? Is your job different when you put on the hat of each one? Really?
It is, absolutely. I stay at a higher level. I expect the other project manager to know the details. So then she brings it up to the next level, and I know a little less of what's happening there. I'm not in the day-to-day of them, of their building of features. Okay,
so interesting. Alex, I'm going to go to you on this because your title is project manager. So based on what Zemira just said and you looking across, how do you look at the difference between project management and program management and product operations?
So it actually aligns pretty well with what Zemira just explained. So I'm actually a project manager on a lot of like engineering kind of initiative. So to her point, more like the day-to-day, daily scrum, planning, execution, delivery, and also on some other projects, more like, R&D, where, the actual R&D engineers is also acting as a project manager. I'm also just looking at the bigger picture. So really going back to exactly what she mentioned, is like the actual execution of the project. We're not that much involved. We're following more on a bi-weekly basis just to know the status. and we're more focused on the not only the delivery but also the follow-up. It's like, okay, now we deliver this project, now it's time to go to market. This is where you kind of, the project manager, like, okay, I'm kind of done, right? The project has been delivered. The actual outcome in terms of maybe it's sales, maybe it's retention, depending on the goal. This is where you move on to program. So again, my title, I'm more focused on like engineering projects, but for some other projects, maybe more customer facing or R&D, I also have this title of program management. And I think the interesting part where it will be interesting to have, from my perspective, Cedric's opinion as well, is the product operations for us. It's not so much an official department, but it's being handled by product, by marketing, sometimes even by sales, like to help fill out the education program, because they have a different perspective because they're talking to the prospect. So as far as we're concerned, product ops is being handled across department, but it's not really an official title. And other companies I worked for was kind of the same. So it was interesting for me. It's like, yeah, product ops, I've heard a lot about it, obviously, but we do have this distinction, project program, which sometimes can be blurry, to be honest, especially if you wear both hats. But yeah, so pretty much along the lines that what Zemira just explained.
So I have a quick follow-up for you, because then we're going to bring Cedric in. This is going to be interesting. So when you say you don't have a product operations official title or team, let's say, you said that various other groups contribute to the work that a product operations would do. So my question is, do people not know who's in charge? Is there no one of that role? There's no, what's they call it, neck to squeeze, or the one person kind of thing, and everyone just says I can help, and then nobody helps. Is that a problem or no?
No, we do have, so whoever is the program manager, depending on the project, will have, his list. And when we have our, let's say bi-weekly meeting, there is a clear, delegation. It's
Okay,
like,
good.
hey, if we need product collateral, that's product marketing. If we need training, maybe that's a sales engineer, right? And this doesn't have to be the same like group, but it's clear for each project, delivery, what are the collaterals, what needs to happen, what documentation needs to be updated. But again, it's kind of a cross-functional efforts, not just like, oh, we're sending that to our product operation department. It's like, no, we need to all collaborate.
Yes. Okay. All right. Very good. Sometimes that can be tricky. And
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes. Good. Cedric. Okay. So product operations is so coming from your role, how do you look at these three roles: product, program management, project management, operations?
So we don't have we have some kind of project manager for a delivery team. They are working specifically for like one customer, and so they're taking the request from the customer and implementing that. But mostly we got product manager, so they are like responsible for the outcomes, generating outcomes for the product itself. So it's less on time, on budget with scope. It's more, do we generate more MRR every month, or do we reduce the churn rate on this product, or do we improve the lead time to change from the delivery team? So do we need to invest into that and making all the trade-off? Last year, so my background is engineering, so that's funny. And last year I switched to the product side. So my engineering colleagues said I joined the dark side. And my first role was a product operation manager. We didn't have that function, that role at Broadsign. So I started to do like getting data out of all the products and building dashboards, so we know like what's the impact of our work. And I try to standardize all the work that the teams are working. And that's why we took Dragonboat, to have like one platform, to have the roadmap and have the same format for everyone. And we can share it like across the company and doing all the presentation we need to make. And so I switched to the director of product a couple weeks ago, and I think I'll continue to have like that kind of responsibility for my team. So I've got the 4 product manager, and so the process of product discovery, doing impact mapping and figuring out what we need to build, it will be the same for all product managers. And yeah.
Okay,
based
so
on data.
well, of course, based on data, of course. So I have a follow-up for you, which I think I'm going to use to transition us into the metrics and the OKRs and the goal alignment, because you said your product managers are responsible for metrics that are seemingly business metrics like MRR, for example, and product use and things like that, as opposed to, I would say, you can correct me, as opposed to metrics that are delivery related, shipping, shipping product features related. Did I get that correct?
Yes, you're correct. So we split the delivery part. So like how fast can we ship things to the engineering department? So we're responsible of to the discovery and figuring out what we need to build. And then that's the engineering deliveries team that will get out. For sure, we got a collaboration and we need to talk, and we're going to update the roadmaps based on if they found something or there's a bump in the road somewhere. But yeah.
Got it. So the responsibility, let's just take MRR as an example, if I could, is do MRR goals come from, let's say, the executive level or the company level? And then the product team has to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to achieve those MRR goals that the executive team told us we have to chase? Or does that come from the product team up and they say, we can deliver this, and then how does your company do that?
So it's a bit of, it's your first option. So the executive wants like an EBITDA of something, so they want to raise the revenue. This is all executive. They want to make more money or more profit at the end of the year. So then the product team with the VP, we're saying, okay, what do we want to accomplish over the year, and figuring out the what is the investment? How do we support that? And each quarter, the product manager like looks at what they should build to support that annual objective.
Okay, got it.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, it does. And so a reminder to the audience, as you have questions, please feel free to type those into the chat as you have them. If one of our guests says something you like or disagree with, or you want to know more about, type it in. We will do our best to address those as we're talking, instead of waiting to the end and inevitably run out of time and not be able to get to them all. So type those in as you have them. So please do that. And
I want to add, sorry, go finish your thought. I want to add to what Cedric said about how that planning goes.
please do go, Zemira. Yeah.
Something that at Bushel we started doing this year with introduction. We now have a head of product. Before it was kind of split into different products, but now there's one gentleman that oversees all of it. He's introduced, if any of you have read books from Marty Kagan, he focuses on product management heavily. And so we're adapting a lot of that. And how I think of what I do versus what my product managers do, they're focused on product. I'm focused on execution. And I do see product operations kind of running in between. They know what product they want to build, why they're building it. Decisions are made at the executive level. We need to be here in X amount of time. We have these goals. Product managers break those down into certain goals. Then I have a discovery team that goes on and figures out, is this really feasible, viable, all those things. And then at the end of that, we say, okay, this is something we're going to go for this coming quarter. And that's what we focus on. Where I see my role, and that's where it is going, is that my product manager needs to be thinking about a roadmap year out, 2 years out. And I'm taking that quarter that's coming up and preparing for it, or 2 quarters out and preparing it with discovery. And so I think maybe that's a clarity that some folks may be wondering, where do I fit into that picture? Product management and program management project, however you want to call it, is kind of like this. It's overlap. There's Cedric, I think in your organization, maybe engineering took some of that, what we would call traditional project management. That's cool. Organization decides to do that. It doesn't matter how it lives, but there's definitely overlap. So if anybody is thinking there's a clear line in between, there isn't, but it's clear that product management oversees product and what we should be building, and project management, whoever's doing that, is overseeing the execution of it, getting it across the finish line, making sure all those little pieces are coming together across delivering of the product. I know some teams focus on just the technical portion. I oversee the whole delivery of the product. And then once I'm done with that, I start looking at the bigger picture, year 1, 2, 3, and start thinking, how are we going to line that up? What kind of resources we would need? Should the team that we have, change in a certain way so we can accommodate that roadmap? So I then kind of step into my directorial role and start thinking of what the future looks like. How do we align to get there? I wanted to clarify that because I feel like that a few years ago, if somebody was telling me about this, I would be confused about it, but now it makes complete sense.
So can I ask another question to clarify it further so that I understand it? And I'm going to channel some of the audience. I'm going to try to. So if you say a product team, in your organization decides what we should build, is your role to decide whether we should build it and when? Is that the difference?
They decide whether we should build it. Well, technically, the research team and designers, there has to be a viability there. If they see, we have had that case in the past on my team, not on my team, because we're a brand new product and we could not afford to make mistakes. So we really had to have a research behind every little feature we were building. And I will tell you that the trajectory of how we were building a product changed based on the research we found in the field. So now we know firmly that what we're building is going to meet the user's need, and we are constantly getting that validation as we're building. So they decide what, I just make sure that it's coming along, even through the research.
And part of, sorry, Alex, I'll bring you in on this one. So when feasibility is it customer feasibility? Is it what the team can deliver and it's what the company can capture in value? Is that part of feasibility? So Alex, my question for you is, how does feasibility play into your role as a project manager?
So kind of similar, because, yes, product will decide what we're going to build. But then engineering will be involved, as much as we can. We try to stay agile, but sometimes unfortunately, you have to run some estimates in advance. And those estimates are, again, feasibility will decide, okay, well, that's going to take us, 2 quarters, and that change everything. So we do use Chatmeter, we do use RISE scoring. So even though the actual product is really valuable to our customer, if, suddenly it's going to take, 100% of our resources for like a month, well, maybe that's not the first thing we need to focus on. So I just wanted to follow up on what you asked, Zemira, is whether, same, it's not like we make the decision whether we do it or not, but we need to bring more colors to the whole picture. It's like, yes, this is number 1 for product, but this is the estimates, this is the resources available. And the other thing I wanted to add is, at least for us, is we do have company OKR that will translate into product OKRs. But we also have, and I know we'll talk about resources, the same resources needs to be used for other OKRs for other departments that are not for the product itself, but for the company. That might be an internal tool, that might be we talk about education, like a knowledge base. We need to revamp our knowledge base. It's not really the product, but we still need resources to do that. So all of that will play into whether or not we should do feature A. Ultimately, we're not the decision maker, but we try to have as much color as possible.
So what I'm hearing, and Cedric, I'll get you to comment on this too, and the rest of you as well, but what I'm hearing is, I sort of don't like the word feasibility anymore. I'm sort of learning from you. Like, feasibility implies whether we're going to do it or not. Estimating, Alex, back to what you just said, estimating implies how we're going to do it, or how it can be done, and possibly when. So especially an engineering team saying, okay, well, I get it. We can make orange buttons. This is what it's going to take to do that. So Cedric, your engineering background, if you could come in on this and say, is that assumption correct that I'm making? And is that what you might expect from your teams, to estimate properly so they can help decide how this is going to happen?
Yes, but they're already, so when we got an idea, we can have like a t-shirt size estimation, like saying, is it like extra large? And we know like it's touching everything, it might be risky. So, but like if it's changing a typo on a web page, we know that it's riskless. We just need to prioritize that. So So there's the two, and I really like Alex bringing up the RISE score, where you can put it there and saying, okay, how can I generate the most impact to the most customer with the smallest thing, so the biggest bang for the buck. So for me, my product manager should prioritize the roadmap based on that. So are we going to generate more user adoption by doing this over that? And so they can comment on that. So at the beginning, when it's an idea, it's really a gross estimate. I'll say a guesstimate.
Guesstimate. Yeah, that's good.
And the more we're like going into the delivery mode, we can iterate on that and like refine it and have a better estimate.
Got it. Okay, let's shift a little bit to the OKR topic and aligning them. And so, Alex, you said you used the phrase OKR. So, do you use OKRs?
I mean, I think
Chatmeter?
we technically call them MBOs, but I guess
Okay.
same but different.
Okay, sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so we do use MBOs, and yeah, so we have companies MBOs that are obviously decided by executive and other stakeholders,
Right.
and then those will translate into departments MBOs. To the exception that, for example, the engineering team, they may have some maintenance to do or some upgrade, right? Some API upgrade, which, I mean, ultimately will work its way back into the company MBOs, but it's not directly, like, no matter what the company MBOs was, it's like, we have to do it. So yes, we do MBOs. They are reviewed on a quarterly basis. I mean, we have them for the year at the beginning, right, from executive, and then we adapt them quarter by quarter.
Can you walk through briefly how your team at the team level or at the department level takes the company MBOs, like at the beginning of the year, and say, okay, we have the MBOs from the company. Let's sit down as a team and take what we can and make our contributions to it. Sort of how at a high level does that work for you?
Yeah, so sometimes it's kind of straightforward depending on what it is. If it's customer retention, let's say it's customer retention, right? Then product will already know, hey, this is the feedback from sales and customer success. So this is kind of linear. It's more when it's more like a strategic, like, I don't know, we need this new segment of the market where product will indeed sit down. There's probably research that is being done, and then we'll investigate. But I guess it's a collaborative effort, but most of the time it's kind of straightforward. It's like, for these MBOs, oh, we know this is part of the product, or this is where we need to work on. But to answer your question, it will really start. So we'll have executive MBO. The executive will set the MBO for the company. Then we have a VP of product, who will chime in because it will be also part of those company, meetings, which
right.
The rest of the product manager may not be. So he will already come to the department meeting with a lot of information. Obviously, still open for a conversation, but usually it's kind of straightforward.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Zemira, do you at your company do OKRs or some other?
Yeah, they do. And they're stabilizing this year, meaning we're implementing them on every level of the organization. They're more focused on the product. It's possible that some teams have OKRs, but they are in some sense secondary in a priority. Product. We are software development companies, so product OKRs are critically important to our success. We do have them, and usually there's the 5-year, where do we want to be? And then generally I work in the 0 to 12 months. I do look at past 12 months, but my work mostly happens in 0 to 12. And say, for example, we need to acquire 10 more customers. Then what does it take to get the product to be able to take 10 more customers? And we align that. And I mean, everybody has to shift to be able to make that happen, all the way from sales through marketing, through product, through operations. And OKRs are a very healthy thing to have. Of course, you want them to be a little aggressive, but in some sense achievable and measurable. So that's key to us. Is next step is measuring how well are we doing? Are we achieving enough? How's that going? And how do we mature the company? This is a young company that I work for. So this is the next evolution for them to stabilize into from going from private to maybe a public company in a few years. And this is a way to get there.
So in your example, where the goal might be acquire 10 new customers, and so then your team would say, okay, how can we get the product ready to handle that? So now what does your process look like for sitting down with your team and figuring out, hey team, how are we going to make this happen? And especially if marketing needs to be involved, or sales and the product team, do you play a role in gathering all those teams and saying,
I do.
we need orange buttons and we need better sales collateral and whatever?
Yeah, I'm the one that brings the group together, and we have a conversation through. It's a big planning session. It doesn't take one day. It takes multiple. It takes, of course, sometimes over weeks as we're planning for that. And we talk through what the sales need to do. What does marketing need to have? If it's this kind of customer, is a different structure of sales content approach through marketing. And then we talk through the build. Build is, of course, the most complex one, because it does require typically more resources, and it's a code. It takes a little while to build it and test it and make sure that it's ready for customers. So if we're trying to do something at the end of the year, let's just say our goal is to have 6 or 10 customers by the end of the year. We're going to begin in June. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Then obviously all that work had to have happened many months ago, because getting everybody ready and get the system stable and in customer ready state is a long process, depending on how far away from the final product we were. And in my case, we are
Yep.
brand new
Yep.
product. So it's a big planning cycle. I would say maybe even 12 months ago, we were talking about, we're going to have 10 customers at the end of the year and start planning for it.
Well, it's sort of funny. If it takes 3 months to go through all that, now you only have 9 months to do it. So now what?
Hurry up.
Okay. Okay.
No, we started at the beginning of that. We knew we needed new customers, right? So everybody was focused on, what does the product need to be? It's a fintech type product. So security is important. Infrastructure is important. All of those structural things are there. So that's from technology side, those are the things we worry about. And then building the features on top of it and getting it to that stable. And then a little later, marketing and sales come in, and their process, they're typically a process, and those are easier to go through because they're been repeated on other products.
I see. Yes.
It's funny what you were saying. We're passing so much time on the strategy, and then like we're dropping the stuff on the delivery team, and then you need to make it in 2 weeks. Like, okay, well, you passed 3 months deciding what you wanted to do.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Well, Cedric, when that happens on your teams, how do you address it?
The 3 months of strategy.
And then the 2 weeks of you have 2 weeks to do what should take you 2 months.
Yeah, well, I try to I try to make it clear, like, you took 3 months, like we cannot like answer you like in 2 weeks, like but it's a conversation. It happens once in a while, and it's educating people. So what I try to do at my company is making clear, like, we got like area of focus or business line, but like, okay, here's what we're going to do, what are the products in there, how it works, and so it helped building up the OKRs for that. So okay, this company wants to make 10% growth in revenue, let's say, and okay, well, for this business line, what does it mean in the next 12 months? And the second business line, what does it mean? And then we can go down with each person responsible for their area can go down with their team and look at features and what market we want to address, and in order to get there.
So your process in your company would be an objective would come down from the company.
Yes.
And then let's say increase MRR by 10%.
Yep.
Now, so your process is what? You gather the product teams, the product managers, and
usually what we did is, like, in December last year, we were the VP of product and all the directors, and we say, okay, what are we going to achieve in 2022 for all the areas? And then each one of us went down with our team to break it down. What can we do? And each quarter we can like put new like product objective, like, okay, we want to do this, so we need to get this month, we need to find 5 beta customers, let's say. So that's one objective.
Right. We may have lost Alex. I hope we can get him back shortly. Maybe the interwebs turned off where he is or something. So hopefully we can get him back. And while we're doing that, let's shift to Zemira's favorite topic, resources and dependencies and planning. And because we in a sense, I want to go back to the estimating topic, right? Because as you, Zemira, we'll start with you. As you look across the portfolio of what you have to help execute on, the product teams, I assume, are deciding what we're going to do. And it's probably too many things. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, your team comes in and says, okay, wait a minute, let's get the estimates right. Let's figure out what is necessary to do this. And then there must be a conflict. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So every quarter we go through the planning for the upcoming quarter.
Yep.
By then the list has been prioritized. We know in exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, the priority order of the features that business product manager wants to approach this quarter. And the team has already had a look at it. We know roughly the estimate of it. So we go through several days of what does this take technically to build it? It's really engineering speaking, engineering language. How are they going to build it? Where does it go? How complex this is? And at the end of those 2-3 days of planning, we know fairly well how big these several things that product manager wanted to approach in this coming quarter. And then we have that conversation around, you wanted 7 things. We know confidently we can complete 5. We fully understand them. We commit to 5. The 2 we cannot commit to. We are missing pieces, or they may be bigger than the time will allow. But should something else take place, those are the next in line. And that's how we finish that quarterly planning. And then we go into execution mode and go in priority order. Now, if we're able to, I have a pretty big group of engineers. There's probably altogether maybe 10 of them plus testers. So I'm able to break things into 2-3 things being worked on at the same time, and they're kind of all moving toward the end. And throughout, we are constantly in communication. We have our product owner attend stand-ups, and we have the demos at every 2 weeks. And so in my case, he is able to check how well we're doing, what's happening. At the same rate, discovery team that's discovering next set of features is also demoing at the same 2-week cadence. So our product manager really has a good sense of what's being executed and getting ready to be in production soon here, and what we're thinking for the next quarter. So there's constantly this cycle of something's being discovered, something is being executed, but it's really the communication and trading. And sometimes, I mean, sometimes even in the middle of the build of a particular feature, we will say, okay, well, this piece is going to take like 7 times bigger, or it's bigger 7 times than we actually thought. It's hitting too many things. Is there something else we could do? And then we have the negotiation, and it's just really a conversation.
Okay. So the first conversation, I assume, might come when you say, of the 7 things you want, we're confident we can do 5.
Yeah.
So what happens when the team says, but the other 2 are absolutely necessary, we have to do it, right? So how does that first negotiation start?
So if product owner is not able to accept that we will not complete all 7 things, then we have a resourcing conversation. Okay. Is there anybody on another team? And we have had those conversations. Is there somebody from another team that can help us, or we can hand it off to another team, which actually we have handed off things to another team to work on things. Or we say, well, there's something very critical there. Let's just put everybody else on everything else, and one person on this one of the 2 big things that we still have to finish. And so that person is making, so it's moving the little puzzle pieces around as long as we get the whole at the end.
Okay. All right. Alex, I want to ask you a similar question because you must be involved. How does the estimating and the resource planning happen for you when you're saying with what we have, we can deliver this?
Yeah, so it's gonna along the lines from what Zemira just mentioned. I think first of all, what we do is we have buckets, right? It's like a product, you'll get 75% of our engineering resources because we need 10% for infrastructure work and 15% for system maintenance, and that's how we can do it. I think the challenge is we don't have the luxury to have a discovery team. So the engineering team will be the one looking at the long-term picture and give what Cedric was mentioning, like t-shirt size. And the challenge is like, we cannot bug them too much in advance because we don't want to distract them from the tactical thing that is happening, but we have to. So how do you balance between, okay, I know you're busy on this, you know, we run Scrum, so we have 2 weeks sprints. You need to work on this sprint, but also look at what's coming at for the next 3 months. So to go back to your question, so first of all, we have buckets. So I know like among all the engineering team, I can allocate, I'm just making that up, 70% to products. And then product will come up with kind of similar to what Zemira was saying, like, you know, what's your top 5 based on, first of all, just the rise without the efforts, you know, what's the most valuable stuff we need to do. I will work with you and engineering to provide the efforts, and then let's revisit. And I will draw the line. It's like, hey, this is what we can do. And exactly what Zemira mentioned is like, hey, if that's not enough, that's a different conversation. Like that means we need to hire more. First of all, we need to relay that to the executive team. It's like, hey, with this capacity, this is how much we can deliver. If you want it faster, well, you know, we need more people. So yeah.
So follow up, you said you draw the line. So this is a leadership question, right? So how, you know, obviously you have X resources to deliver something and you can't deliver 1 million with one. Okay. How do you draw the line without saying this is all we can do and without being a negotiator and a team player, right? How do you do that?
Well, that actually comes down to Dragonboat, because, you know, you need to really explain why you're drawing this line, and also, you know, showing all the other stuff that are going on. And clearly is like, hey, this is, you know, what we can deliver. We're also working on all of that. And this really certainly where our capacity. And, you know, this is where actually Dragonboat, I love the allocation resources, the buckets.
Yeah.
And to your point, that also brings a conversation, because maybe product will come up, it's like, okay, well, maybe item number 7 can, you know, let's flip that up. And I can do 2 more. I can do 8 and 9 instead of doing 7. But yeah, I mean, it's a conversation, but it's basically for all the information that I gather, how do I present them in a meaningful way to really explain like, hey, this is our capacity.
So quick follow up, and then Cedric, I'm going to go to you next, because you also brought up using Dragonboat for another reason. But so Alex, when you go to the, you know, one of the views for resources, and what do? You show, okay, this is what we have. This is how many resources it's going to take. Some of these are green, some of these are red. So we're over or under resource for these things. And so do you bring that up as a practical level with the team and discuss it like that with the trade-offs and the decision? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 engineering teams. So first of all, we start with the portfolio, because I already know we organize our roadmap or our teams. So I already know the capacity for the quarter, and I can show them even without going to the actual diagram. It's like, hey, you see the total for this team. By the way, we're already over. And then it's easier looking at the table view, the portfolio view, if I'm not mistaken, because you can easily drag and drop or change the quarter. And then after that, we look at the resource allocation, and, you know, because it's a nice visual tool. And yes, you can see the percentage, because we said, and this is also, sorry, just to make it clear, this is also where sometimes negotiation will happen. It's like, do we need 10% on infra? Can we go down to like 7% on infra for this quarter? So we get 3% more. So showing the diagram, the resource allocation can help that conversation. Like, how do we, if we need to shift, how do we shift? Like, where do we get from?
Okay. God, I wish I had Dragonboat in a previous job, because we over-indexed on infrastructure for 6 months, and we intuitively knew we were doing that, and we put off product features, but it was all subjective. Okay. Anyway, thanks for sharing that. So Cedric, to you, do you use the resource planning in Dragonboat, let's say, to help make some of these decisions?
Unfortunately, no. So the allocation, I'm not using the team allocation.
Okay, so then how do you do this where you have to, plan resources and allocate accordingly?
So the team are pretty much stable, the number of people in the team. So what we're doing right now is basically what's the velocity of this of each team and what is their innovation rate. So innovation rate is number of like features going out of the door. So the infrastructure is not counted into that. So we know that your 70% or 60% of the work is new features and bringing value. But how Alex is explaining it, I think I need to look into the allocation.
It might help. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I know engineering build like a spreadsheet to track that, and I think it might be more useful to do it with Dragonboat.
Okay, very good. And we have a question in the chat that I'm noticing now that is related to this discussion. And it is, and I think we've discussed this, do requirements or dependencies ever shift the prioritization of the work? Like I assume midstream. Zemira, could you talk about that? Because you did bring that up a little bit. So how does the new requirements or current, how do things shift, so let's say mid period?
This happens to me on so many different angles. For example, we have a team that does the identity. However, that team was tapped with something for another 8 months, and we needed identity piece. So my team took that on instead of building features because we needed it. And we needed it urgently because many other features were dependent on that piece. That piece was complex, had to be tested out. The good thing is the identity team is taking our code and expanding it, and they're going to apply it across the entire company. So good things came from it. But nonetheless, that took 3 months from my team to build that piece instead of building features. In other instances, we will find out security requirements. They will crash a sprint. Something comes up, vulnerabilities there, we have to deal with it, crash the sprint. That has happened to me multiple times. So what we have started doing is just taking an allocation. We're just saying 30% of the capacity is always for the unexpected bug fixes if they show up from testing, planning, other meetings that people attend. Let's just cut 30% off, 70% is for the features. Even infrastructure work, that's also a feature. And that has stabilized the team significantly. So that was one lesson for us that we're going to keep repeating. But will this happen? Of course it will. I always expect something to happen. How we solve it is a question depending on, does it have to be done this sprint? Let's try not to crash a sprint. That's very important for stability of the team. And let's plan it for the upcoming cycle, or how do we work it? That's always in question. Is it our team, another team? Yeah.
One super quick question for you on this, because when you talk about buffer, do you, and this is really a practical question, do you literally have a ticket in the sprint that is called buffer for maintenance, or just reduce the?
We just reduce the scope, based on velocity, may just make assumption. There was a point in time we thought, let's just call a placeholder for bugs. And I don't know, team doesn't like that because it messes up their velocity. What if bug didn't come in? Then I have to close the ticket and remove story points, just messes how the reporting happens. So we're just keeping it, we make assumption. And
Gotcha.
some people may be working 80-90% features and 10% other things. Usually those that are more senior, more involved in additional planning than just the normal planning, they probably need to be at 70% feature build. Everything else is other things.
Gotcha. The reason I'm asking, not so much at a sprint level, but more on the quarterly planning is, again, it's really like, it's, if you don't put that buffer, you're going to use it for something else, right? So if you don't like, hey, we have this product release, let's give us a week or so for like, I don't know, maybe customer will come back with new stuff. Like someone will try to, hey, oh, you're done here, we can start working on that. It's like, well, technically.
Well, one thing we started doing is also acknowledging that there's probably some technical debt from the previous quarter that we need to address. So we have teams that specifically, let's just say there's 6 sprints in a quarter, 2-week sprints. They dedicate last sprint to technical debt, cleanup, whatever engineers need to do. And some teams decide to build new features. My team likes to spread those things throughout. So they technically are building features and addressing bugs every sprint and solving some of that technical debt. I think we are going to reach a point where we will probably just have to give it a whole sprint because we have built so much product. But that's really for team to have a conversation. I mean, that's why they're experts in engineering. And we'll just give it a sprint at some point in time and get it done.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm seeing like the people are like mixing up two concepts here, like the time it takes to do something, like the estimates, and the end date. Like so they don't need to be the same. Like you can say it takes it takes 3 sprints, but it might not be 3 sprints consecutive 3 sprints. It could be like over 5 sprints. So you're dealing like, okay, I need to do this first, so let's do it in sprint 1, and then this sprint 2, and then like something comes up more important, we can do it in sprint 3 and something like that. And
so Cedric, I want to just pull on that thread, and then we'll go to some more questions and a final question for each of you. So do you still have to explain that concept to your teams? You might say, this is going to take 3 sprints and we'll deliver it it'll be delivered in September, which is 4 months from now, let's say. And people go, wait a minute, how could that 3 sprints should be done by May? Do you still have to do that, or do you explain it once and everyone gets it?
Oh yeah, you need to repeat all the time.
Okay.
That's a sad thing if people forget.
And if you at some point in time set a date sooner than September, they will remember that.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. So I just we're going to go to our final question for each of you. And then I'm going to remind the audience, we've taken one question. If you have questions for our guests, please type those in now, and we will address those as they come in. So this is the last question. It's really advice from each of you, because you each are taking, let's say, a portfolio view of your work. And so whether you're in a quote project management role or program management role okay, so what advice do you have with someone on here who is not today looking at things in a portfolio view, but they will be or should be, and they're about to take that on? What advice would you give them for making decisions in a portfolio view world? So Zemira, let's start with you.
I can speak from experience. I was somebody who jumped from project management into program portfolio. Be open-minded, think of yourself as a leader. Think of what would product manager need. It is our job to make sure that their needs are met. That's how I usually think. They're my primary stakeholder. And what are the goals they're trying to achieve? How can I be of value to them? I am always humbled to take on, even if it's to schedule a meeting for them. And I mean it, I will schedule a meeting if it's going to serve them. And think ahead of them. Think of all the risks and issues that may come around them accomplishing this goal, and throw those things out in front of the group, whoever's working with you on it, to figure out, how do we solve these problems? Our job is delivery. So they're thinking of ideas, we're thinking of how we're going to get it done. And that's always thinking that, what value am I providing? How can I be of service to this group? Are we thinking of all the things we need to be thinking? Not just for, usually project managers tend to focus on technical, not always, but I always think about a big picture. How does sales, marketing, operations, product, all of those pieces, how do they come together?
Yeah, a broader view. And I like that you said that you need to think of yourself as a leader, because you are leading, and none of these people maybe report to you. And so that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, very good. So Alex, what about you? Advice for people who need to start thinking at the portfolio level?
Yeah, I think I like the open-minded aspects that Zemira mentioned. I would say do not hesitate to over-communicate, because to that point, you're going to work with different departments. It's not just product engineering. It might be customer success, marketing, sales. And, obviously, since COVID, we have this hybrid environment where you don't just walk to someone's office. I mean, we're lucky here, we're going back to the office, but we're still on, Slack and whatnot and email. So I would say, yeah, don't hesitate to over communicate. Can it be, via, Slack, Dragonboat, Jira, Confluence, because you don't want everybody in the same meeting, but you need information from all those departments, because they can influence, maybe delivery or, other stuff like product related. So yeah, and it's really a cross-functional role. Even though mainly you work with product managers and engineering managers, you interact with pretty much everybody in the company. if maybe sales, I interact with sales reps sometimes. And you also sometimes report directly to executive. So yeah, I will say communication. Do not hesitate. If anything, they'll say, "Hey, I get it."
It's funny. Just one comment is like the over communicating. We probably think we're communicating right, which means we're probably under communicating by 10. There's got to be some rule of thumb there that must be true, that if we think we're doing it enough, we're probably
not doing
here.
it. Yes, you're right.
Cedric, for you, what advice would you give to someone?
Find the alignment, like the feature you're putting on your roadmap, how is it aligned with the company objectives, and how do you contribute? And I've got an anecdote of someone I'm coaching at Broadsign. He said, well, the objective in Dragonboat, I cannot put any one of them on my feature. Well, you need to talk to your boss. Maybe you're not aligned with what we're trying to accomplish. Or maybe we should add an objective to support what you're trying to say. Maybe it's right to do what you're saying, but so it brings up like communication between different departments and the executives.
Yeah, you have to bring people together.
Yep.
There's a theme you're all talking about: bringing people together, aligning people, being the leader among all these cross-functional teams. You're not just on your team anymore, I guess, is what really happening.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Zemira, Cedric, Alex, thank you very much for joining. Leah, do we have anything from you that we need to wrap up on as we let everyone go?
I am not currently seeing any questions. Right. I had one though, while we have the last 5 minutes. So we obviously just, talked a lot about team alignment. Would one of you be able to kind of dive into like, what teams do you have rolled out into Dragonboat, and to which capacity are they sort of using that for alignment? And how did you get buy-in between, maybe your CSM team doesn't want to use those things in marketing? Kind of how did you implement that to make sure that you have that alignment? And it can go to any of you if any of you want to jump in.
Yeah,
go ahead, Alex.
So we started Dragonboat for the roadmap aspect. We're using different tools, and it was just tough to manage because all our data was in Jira, so we had to use Excel and whatnot. So we started with just the roadmap, export that to the entire team and entire company, and realize I think Zemira mentioned that if you show September delivery dates, then you better be September. So the roadmap is just for product and engineering. So they use the portfolio to do the right scoring. And then we look at the time frame for the quarter, if not, a couple of quarters ahead. So that's just product and engineering. Executive can access the time frame, but the rest of the company is really, we use the dashboard, the summary. So instead of the actual dates, it's more like the month, if not the quarter, and that everybody use that. So the customer success marketing feeds from that, obviously, so they know in advance, product blogs and whatnot. The sales rep can also have access to that. So product engineering mainly roll out to the company just for communication. And now we're looking into the request portal, because obviously we have a lot of feedback from sales. They're being tracked somewhere else. So we're trying to have them into Dragonboat so we have everything in the same place.
For me, my company is not yet using Dragonboat. I hope soon they do. They just started with OKRs a couple of quarters ago. So they're trying to stabilize that system of tracking things. So hopefully in the near future we will. But I am familiar with Dragonboat. I was there with the product at the beginning, provided some feedback as it is being built. And I imagine when we get to use it, we would use definitely the allocation between the teams. That I think is and portfolio level, and being able to slice the product so only people that need to see certain things can see it will be one of the key things that I would enjoy using.
Yep. On my side, I'm a bit like Alex. We're not using the allocation, but we want to get on the request portal. What we're going to share to the organization is a 3D roadmap. So we're with like each product and in quarters, and we add the theme. So everything is grouped by theme. So it's easy for them, like, oh, you're working on authentication, or you're working on we got some screen inventory. So you're working on inventory, and so it's easy for them, and they can drill down and see the epic. So we're going to share that with marketing, sales, and customer support. Yep.
Very good.
I'm pleased to
Okay.
hear that your marketing teams are finding value in that. That's a good reason to be on the tool.
Yep.
Yeah, because if not, they will ask you the question anyway.
Yeah, right.
When is this coming? It's like, well, just look here.
Yeah. That was one of our problem. Everyone has a different roadmap somewhere hidden,
Mhm.
and now it's one place to rule them all.
So you just tell everyone the answer to every question now is check Dragonboat. Is that
Yep.
Very much.
Yep.
it? Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Good. Okay, Leah, how do we wrap this up? This was a
Um,
great discussion.
Yeah, well, I guess we can wrap it up by saying thank you to our speakers and thanks to the audience for being here. And yeah, it was a great chat, very informative. So we will follow up with the recordings and the slides after this shortly by the end of the day.
Thank you for
Yeah,
the
Zemira,
invite.
Cedric, Alex, thank you for doing this. This is
Thank you.
great.
Thanks for
That was
having us.
fun. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank
Okay,
you, everyone.
bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.